to chilled guitar reviews. A little bit of a different video this week because I am going to tell you the story of how I bought a broken and filthy Jeff Loomis Schecter signature model and how I brought it back to life to be the absolutely devastating riff machine you're going to see in this video. I have been a massive fan of Nevermore and Jeff Loomis's playing ever since my teenage years, and this is actually not the first time I have owned one of the Jeff Loomis Schecter signature guitars. Now, the original run of his signature guitars from Schecter consisted of an arch-top Schecter Superstrat body shape in a neck-through construction available in either a satin black or a vampire satin red finish. Me personally, I feel like the satin red is just an absolutely killer color. It's very dark in person, closer to like a blood red or a maroon sort of color. And the most famous thing that makes these guitars so distinctive is the extremely bright maple fingerboard. Early versions of this guitar had an extremely yellow looking fretboard like this model seen here, whereas later years of this guitar were finished in a slightly lighter, less yellowy shade of maple on the fretboard. The earlier versions of this guitar also came with the EMG 707 pickup set, whereas the later models came with the EMG 5766 set. When this thing popped up on Reverb, I could not help but notice two things. Number one, that the pictures of it were not great. Number two, that the price was quite low. The seller was offering this guitar as is with a known fault, that being that the input jack was intermittently not working. But aside from a small paint chip on the back of the guitar that nobody is going to see when you're playing it, the guitar appeared to be in reasonable shape and was a 2012 serial model number. Now, these guitars are rare, they do not come up very often, and the ones that do come up are nearly always with a Floyd Rose. Me, myself, I prefer a fixed bridge, so when I saw this example, I just had to have it because versions with a fixed bridge just do not come up very often at all. Now, the seller was only offering local collection on this guitar, so I had to do a little bit of negotiation. I offered to ship him a gig bag and a guitar shipping carton and have a courier come and collect the guitar from him. We negotiated on price a little bit, and we did the deal for this guitar at just under 400 quid, which for a guitar that originally retailed around the £1,400 mark was an absolute bargain. As well as running this YouTube channel, one of my pleasures in life is flipping guitars on the side, buying them slightly broken, fixing them up, and flipping them for a profit. So I did see flipping potential in this guitar, but I also quite fancied it for myself because it is a very rare Jeff Loomis signature model. Now, I knew this guitar would need some work, but I was absolutely not prepared for how absolutely filthy this guitar was. I knew it was broken, but I did not know that it basically required a complete biohazard contamination before I could even begin work on it. This guitar has a 2012 serial number, and I am willing to bet that there is dead skin on this guitar that dates back to then. Not only that, but the black chrome hardware was so heavily oxidized that you could not see any of the chrome anymore on either the bridge or the chrome Jeff Loomis transrod cover or the tone pot. The whole thing was just, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to bring it back. So before I could even get started with addressing the fact that the output jack on the guitar just did not work at all, I had to get this thing cleaned up. So first things first, I stripped the rusty, knackered old strings off this guitar, and I blasted all of that dead skin off with a rocket blower. Next up, I stripped all the hardware off the guitar, so the truss rod cover and the bridge and the pots, and I set them to one side. Then I got to work cleaning up this fretboard, and my goodness, there was some grime on this thing. This guitar is supposed to be a lovely looking yellowy wood grain on the fretboard, but there was a centimetre thick layer of grime between the frets, and on the metal frets themselves, they were just absolutely black. So using good old Dunlop lemon oil, I got to work polishing all this crap off of the frets. I managed to get all of the frets cleaned up really quite nicely, with just a tiny little indentation still there on the 10th fret that appears to be some sort of mark where the guitar's maybe fallen over at some point. I then turned my attention to metal polishing the fret wire itself. Now, for a 10-year-old guitar that's clearly been used and abused, the fret wear on this thing really is actually quite good. There is some very minor wear on the low B string frets, but this thing is definitely not going to need a refret anytime soon, which is excellent news. So you can see a quick before and after here with the metal polish doing its job very nicely on these frets and bringing them up nice and shiny. Next, I got to work on the paintwork of the body and the neck using a microfiber cloth and a bottle of Music Nomad guitar detailer, which is safe to use on satin finished guitars and is pretty much the best thing I've ever found for cleaning them with. I gave this thing a bloody good clean and the cloth was black by the time I was done. Then I turned my attention to the hardware and the metalware on the guitar. From factory, these guitars come with a lovely set of black chrome machine heads, truss rod cover and bridge. Really quite rare. I've not seen many guitars with black chrome. I think it looks so much nicer than just standard chrome. Now, the absolute best thing I have found for bringing back chrome hardware on guitars is Auto Sol polishing paste. This is meant for automotive use, but my God, it is just the best thing I've ever found for restoring metalwork on guitars. Now take a look at the absolute state of this truss rod cover. The truss rod cover on these guitars is a really nice addition. It's engraved with Jeff Loomis's signature and it's just a really tasteful addition, so I really was hoping I could bring it back. And I think you will agree this thing came up like new and I was extremely pleased. Now, I wish I could say the same for the bridge and the volume pot. The volume pot, I did manage to get it back to a somewhat serviceable state, but I could not get it in that shiny, glistening new condition like I could with the truss rod cover. I think it has just had too much damaging and chipping over the years to bring it back. Likewise, the Tone Pros bridge, this thing was not only beyond polishing, the actual metal plating had peeled off. And so the absolute state of this bridge can only lead me to think that this guitar has been gigged, sweated on profusely, and then just not cleaned, because there is nothing that corrodes a guitar bridge like that otherwise. So I had to make the very difficult decision of binning that Tone Pros bridge, unfortunately, and I ordered up a replacement bridge in black, and I also ordered a brand new black tone knob because I just thought there's no way I can reuse that black chrome knob. It's just going to spoil the guitar. Luckily, the black chrome Grover machine heads did come up very nicely, and you can see a couple of before and after shots here. Now, in the time I had to wait for the new hardware to arrive, I got to work addressing the fault that this guitar was sold with, which was that the output jack intermittently did not work. Now, any of you guys out there, if you experience faults with your own guitars, or if you buy guitars with the faults, really do not be afraid. Guitar electronics are so simple. This really is just a plank of wood with two magnets in it and a few wires connecting it to switches and pots. There is very rarely an electronic problem with a guitar that cannot be fixed very, very easily. Now, when I pulled out the input jack to inspect it, my God, there was so much hair in this thing, it was like a tumbleweed coming out attached to it. So first of all, I had to give it a bloody good clean with some wire wool and some contact cleaner. Then it was pretty obvious to me what the problem was. One of the cables, I think it was the ground, had just become detached from the output jack. So a very quick bit of soldering to get that reconnected, making sure that everything else had a good dose of contact cleaner on it, and then putting it all back together. Then I fitted the new bridge and the black volume pot, fresh battery and a fresh set of strings, one final clean, and here is how this baby has turned out. agree, this is a tenfold improvement to how the guitar arrived. Not only is it no longer broken, but it's an absolute crushing riff machine. It's no longer covered in about 100 different people's sweat, dead skin and hair. And I have to say, this thing really does absolutely crush tone-wise. Those EMG 707 pickups, the ash body, the maple neck, it has a real girthy, heavy tone, but it's still extremely bright and clear sounding. Now, for what I paid for this guitar, about 380, 390 quid, I could quite comfortably now flip this for double the money. Now, how do I know that? Because this is not the first Jeff Loomis Vampire Red Schecter guitar that I have restored and flipped. Here is one from around a year ago with a Floyd Rose that was in very similar condition, although not quite as filthy. I bought it for around $450, gave it all of the same attention, love and care and restoration, and I managed to sell it for this much. So that is the Schecter JL7 brought back from the dead and given a new lease of life. The question now is, should I flip it? Should I keep it? I don't know. I'm really enjoying the way this thing sounds. I really like these guitars, and it's pretty rare to find one with a fixed bridge. So what do you guys think? Complete the project with a successful flip and potentially double my money, or keep it as an addition to my 7-string collection and enjoy it for the riff-crushing machine that it is? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. It would mean the world to me if you could please subscribe to the channel and like this video, because it really helps and encourages me to keep making content for you. Better yet, you can support me financially via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Any financial support, even if it is just a couple of quid for a cup of coffee, is gratefully received. Do let me guys know if you enjoyed this video. It is something quite different to what I normally do after all. But until the next chill review, do take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.